the skids. It's kind of cruel, actually, to give an alcoholic more money when you know he's going to use it to buy a drink. And that's why we're against a bailout of Greece. Only when the Greek politicians have really, truly run out of other people's money will they be forced to stop the madness. We'll show you details of that madness in a moment. But what's happening over there is definitely strengthening convictions of those over here that moving closer to socialism is a huge mistake. Most folks here don't buy into that socialist myth that government-run health care or government-run car companies actually save money. Eventually, someone has to pay the bill. There's no such thing as a free lunch, as Milton Friedman once said. Economic reality of that is finally setting in, and that's good news. But the political classes here that have lived off of your money for decades are not going to give up easily, even when it bites them in the butt. Now, this week, we heard that Newsweek magazine is probably going to be closing. You may remember that in celebrating the policies of Barack Obama last week, Newsweek really insulted its readers with one of the dumbest headlines in magazine history. Here it is: "We are all socialists now." Now, all magazines are having a rough time, but never has a magazine so completely alienated itself from its own audience. Newsweek's customers fought back by canceling subscriptions and bankrupting the magazine. Now, the truth is, Americans understand the failure of trying to let governments replace markets, and they're voting at the polls and with their wallets. We are not all socialists now, as Newsweek said we were, not even close to that. But is our political class still committed to moving us all closer to it? Who better to ask than a socialist? Billy Wharton is co-chair of the Socialist Party USA. And we also have with us Niall Gardner, director of Heritage Foundation's Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom. What a mix we have, guys. Thanks for being here. Okay, Billy, now I realize you do not believe that Obama is a socialist, but in the continuum of things, are we moving closer to socialism right now or away from it?
No, David, I don't think we're moving closer to socialism at all. In fact, I think what we're experiencing is the failure of capitalism. We're seeing that in Greece. We're seeing that in the United States. And what Obama's doing is moving us further away from socialism. Basically,
hold on. Before you go further, let us just put up, I teased that we'd show the audience a little bit about what Greece has and what is driving Greece bankrupt. And it's not free market capitalism. It's the fact that you have things like job security. You can't be fired. You literally cannot be fired from a private job in Greece. You have maternity leave of 1 full year. The retirement age over there, as everybody lives longer, retirement age is 54, and the average pension is 96% of salary. Now, Billy, that gets very close to socialism. That's like a kind of social welfare state in extreme.
That's not socialism.
It's Greece, certainly moving close to it, isn't it?
No, it's not. What Greece also has is a large expenditure of their GDP on the military, similar to the United States. Yeah. And what Greece also has is a...
Wait a minute, you're saying that a socialist country doesn't have a military expenditure?
I'm saying that a socialist country wouldn't spend 5% of their GDP on the military.
How much does Cuba spend on its military?
Well, we can talk about Cuba, or we can talk about Greece.
Billy, it's about 20% to 30% of its GDP.
Greece spends 4% of their GDP on the military.
And I would assume you'd call Cuba socialist, wouldn't you?
Well, we can talk about Cuba, or we can talk about Greece.
We're talking about
United
socialism,
States.
Billy, and whether or not the politicians here have gotten the message that what's happening over there is unacceptable.
No,
and Niall, that's the point.
David,
hold on a second, Billy. I got to give Niall a chance to chime in.
Let me point something out.
Billy, hold on one second, because
let me
there are two
finish my
people
point.
here.
Let me finish my point.
Excuse me, Billy.
I'd like to
You're going
finish
to have
my
to
point.
cut off your mic because we need to give Niall a chance to weigh in. Go ahead, Niall. Do you think that is excessive in terms of government expenditures?
No, not at all. I think what we see in Greece today is a struggle over who will pay for the deficit that's been run up. And the struggle is between working people who refuse to pay because they haven't benefited from the last 30 years of neoliberalism, and the employer class, which wants to lay off the deficit on their backs. And they refuse to accept that.
Billy, are you going to retire at 54?
What's that?
Are you going to retire at 54? I don't plan to retire.
I'd love to retire at 54. Not from politics,
would love
but I'd love to retire.
But you can't afford it. At some point, you have to pay for it, don't you?
That's right. But you can't afford it because in Greece and in the United States, the rich are not taxed enough.
What?
That's right. In the United States, 5% of the population controls 85% of the wealth. You can't run a society like that.
That 5% of the population, by the way, pays how much in taxes, Billy?
But that 5%
pays
is not
over 50%, the top 5% of the whole tax revenue in personal income tax.
They're not paying their fair share.
Well, it should be more than 90%?
Absolutely.
How much?
Absolutely.
Where are you going to tax it from if people don't have money that they make? I mean, if you tax all of it away, they're not going to give you anything.
Absolutely not. The rich should pay. They should pay for this crisis that they created.
Well, I think the fact that the top 5% are paying about 6% of the revenue, Niall, shows that they're paying quite a bit.
I agree. And you know, let's look at the reality here. The economic crisis in Greece is created by bad socialist government. Socialism kills job creation, it kills wealth, it kills an enterprise economy. And what we are witnessing now in Greece, frankly, is also spreading to other major European countries. Spain, for example, where unemployment rests at 20% under an extremely left-wing government, is a good example. And the Spanish possibly may need a bailout of about 250 billion euros. That's a huge amount of money. And so the Greek contagion, as it were, is now spreading across Europe. This is down to bad government, socialist policies.
Well, Niall, let me just ask you. I think we and the audience would probably agree that these socialist policies are going nowhere fast, whether they're in Europe or anywhere else. But do you agree that, in fact, this country has a revolt against the move towards socialism? And is that mirrored in what's happening with the voting population overseas?
Well, I think that there is a huge reaction here in the United States against Obama's big government policies. And I think this November we're likely to see the ramifications of that in congressional elections.
But is it happening overseas as well?
Yes, I think so as well. And just last night, for example, in the British elections, the Conservative Party emerged as the largest single party. It doesn't have an overall majority in Parliament. But this is a political party that is calling for a significant reduction in public expenditure. It's a free enterprise party. Britain is turning rightwards. Much of Europe has also turned to the right. We've seen that in recent years in France and Germany, for example. And we are seeing the rejection of